To the dean, to the faculty and the staff, thank you for this incredible honor. To the class of 2023, congratulations, dude. I know y'all are ready to get out of here, right? To the family, friends, fathers, mothers, uncles, aunts, sisters, brothers, grandparents, thank you. Because they sound good now, wasn't always that way. So we thank you for having the patience to let them develop. So give yourselves a round of applause, for sure. My mother, till this day, still doesn't remember that when I started playing the trumpet, she would make me practice in the backyard while her soaps were on during the summer. Yeah, that still left a mark on my soul. Okay, so I have something to say to you guys. I know you're excited about this day, and you should be, because you've accomplished a lot. You've gone through a lot. There's been a lot of trials and tribulations to get you over the hump to where it is that you are today. But you're not finished. You are not finished. Today marks the day where you put everything that you've learned into practice. Today is the day where you continue to really grow and learn to help bring our society forward. One of the things that has stuck with me throughout my career is something that my composition teacher, Roger Dickerson, who is still my mentor to this day, you know, well, let me just tell you the story. You know, all of a sudden, we're recording the music for one of Spike's films, More Better Blues, and we had to record the music for the band before they could shoot the scene. And as we were taking a lunch break, I started to play something at the piano that I was working on for my next album, which is my solo album that he was talking about, the self-titled one. I had written a song called Sing Soweto. Spike came by and heard it and said, man, what is that? I said, something I'm working on. And he says, can I use it? And I said, sure. What am I going to say, no? So we recorded it just as a solo trumpet piece at that point. And Denzel shot the scene. It's the scene where Denzel's on the bridge. Spike gets the scene back into the editing room, and he feels like it's kind of empty. So he calls me up, and he says, hey, man, do you think you could write a string arrangement for this? And I lied and said, yes. You know? So after saying yes, I said, I freaked out, I panicked. I'm like, man, I've never written for orchestra before. What am I going to do, right? So I called Roger Dickerson, the person who is like my musical father. I'm so close to that man, he means everything to me, right? And I knew that once I called him, he would have the right answers for me. So I told him what the situation was, and I waited with such eagerness to hear what he had to say. And you know what he told me? Trust your training. So that's what I'm gonna tell you. Trust your training. You have it within you, right? See, the issue is that we come behind a whole history of music that has set the table for us. And we tend to think that that music has etched everything in stone. No, that music is just one person's opinion. That's all it is. I love Puccini. I love Verdi. I love Stravinsky. What brass player wouldn't, right? But it's just his opinion about how things work. Now, granted, it's brilliant in how they all put it together, but you have now garnered the type of training to create something just as valuable. The only problem is you have to believe it. You know, when I was teaching at the Monk Institute, I had a exercise that my students hated with a passion, right? They're all jazz musicians, and the interesting thing about it, this is an exercise that was given to me when I was in high school. So maybe it was a little bit of payback for me, I don't know, but I enjoyed giving that thing out. And basically what the exercise was to write an arrangement of a short tune for the ensemble within 30 minutes, right? That's the same look I used to get from them. They hated it and would scramble, and as soon as I start to talk about it, being like, oh man, come on, then we have to, I'm like, yeah, you gotta do this. And then they would run out to try to find a piano or a place to to play a guitar, and they would come back with all of these arrangements, right? The guitarist in the band, a few years later, he's traveling the world with Herbie Hancock. You heard me? Herbie wants to do a recording with Sting. And Sting brings in a tune called Sister Moon. And he looks at this guitarist and he says, hey man, you think you could write an arrangement for it? We only have 2 hours. His mind immediately went back to that 30-minute exercise. Something that he had within him that he didn't even realize was there. So you haven't done all of this work for nothing, right? All of that practicing. And here's the thing that I think that's the most important thing I could tell you. Keep your options open. When I was sitting where you're sitting, if somebody would have told me, I've written, man, you're about to write over 40 film scores and 2 operas and about to work on your 3rd, I would have reached across the table just to smell that breath. Say, bro, just put it down, bro, stop drinking, just leave it alone. That would have been my response, right? But for me, in my career, I've been too dumb to know better. So when people come up to me with opportunities, I'm not gonna shut myself off, because my main thinking is, I'm a performer, I have that, right? If this doesn't work, I can go back to that and I'll be fine. When it came time for Opera Theater St. Louis to expand their horizons and want to do a jazz opera, it just goes to show, I'm gonna tell you that story, it just goes to show you how things work. This guy named Gene Dobbs Bradford, who used to run Jazz St. Louis, and I've been knowing him for years, and years ago, we just had a general conversation, and I told him that my father loved opera, my father was an amateur baritone, and I heard a lot of opera growing up in the house. 30 years later, right, he's having a conversation with the director of Opera Theater St. Louis, and they said they wanted to do a jazz opera, and his mind went back to that conversation 30 years ago. And he said, well, maybe you should check out this guy. Now, I didn't know they had that conversation. Jim Robinson, who's the director and who's been directing all of my operas, he came to me in New York and said, hey, maybe we want you to write an opera. And again, I leaned across the table. I'm like, you must be crazy. Me, write an opera? Yeah, we want you to write an opera. Who did I call? Roger Dickinson. Roger, man, I have this project. Whew. I'm thinking, okay, this is an opera. He's gonna give me something concrete this time. I don't wanna hear trust your training. Dude, how do you open? What melody should I write? What's the harmony? Give me something concrete. You know what he said? Don't think about writing opera, tell a story. Again, which essentially means trust your training. Couldn't tell you what exactly I was thinking at that moment in time. But to suffice it to say, you know, I worked through it. And the thing that I think is the most important for you to understand, as long as you have a passion for something, you're gonna be successful. As long as you have that love of something that goes well beyond the monetary gain, right? Those physical things that people want to attain that makes them think they're successful. As long as you have something that goes beyond that, you're gonna be successful. It may not go down the path that you want. I wanted to be Miles Davis. That ain't happened. As soon as I met Miles Davis, I went, nah, that ain't happening. Right? And it scared me, truthfully, it scared me, because I'm like, well, what's up? And then I literally had to figure out that I'm gonna do what makes me feel happy. I'm gonna do what brings joy to my life. And part of my thing in the music world is to open people's eyes to the injustices of our community and our society. So I've dedicated my life and my life's work to doing just that. You know, you heard about the album Breathless with the E Collective. Well, one of the things that I'm proud of is that, you know, we did an album, a follow-up album to that called Live, where we went to 3 cities around the country that had serious moments of gun violence, and we got involved with the communities there and, you know, had discussions, round tables with law enforcement in some places, and actually tried to affect some change. And while we were in Cleveland, where Tamir Rice was shot, this guy came up to me after the show. Now you gotta remember, I just put this electric band together, so everybody's like giving me a hard way to go, because they're like, hey bro, I really, really, really loved your jazz band. I'm like, okay, cool, thank you, I appreciate that, but this is what I'm doing now. So I had a lot of those conversations. So when this guy walked up to me, he says, you know, I thought you were gonna do the music from A Tale of God's Will, the Spike Lee documentary. And I said, uh-oh, here we go. And then he said to me, and the music that you started to play sounded so angry. He said, but then you told us what the music was about. Gun violence in our country. Something that nobody was talking about at the time. But people were getting shot and killed. So we felt like we needed to do something. And then this guy said the most interesting and powerful thing to me that any person has ever said. And he said, I thought to myself, if the guy who created A Tale of God's Will is this angry about gun violence, I need to rethink my position on gun control. That was a powerful moment in my life, because sometimes as artists, we tend to think like we're spitting in the wind, nobody's hearing us. And it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. So I'm telling you this to tell you right now, in your darkest moments, when you think nobody's hearing you, don't believe it. People are paying attention. Look at the number of people out of here that have come to support you on your day of graduation. It's no accident. They're doing this because they've seen your progress. They are proud of what you've done, right? So from this day forward, get excited about anything that comes your way that allows you to create. Get excited about any time you get a chance to be involved in any type of creative endeavor, no matter which side of it it's on, whether you're administrative or performing. We are all in the same boat. Having my operas go to the Met has opened my eyes to the large number of people that it takes to put on those productions, and how everybody involved is a valuable component to making those productions successful. So never think that you're taking a job that's beneath you. That is the furthest thing possible. There's a guy that works at the Met, his name is Tashambi, and I love this guy to death, because when he sang in the chorus for Fire Shut Up in My Bones last year, that's when I met him. But then I wanted to go see a production of Turandot. And when I walked into the theater, guess what I saw? Tashambi dressed in a uniform as an usher. An usher at the Met. I said, really? He goes, hey man, I do it all. I needed an opportunity. Being an usher allowed him to become a part of the chorus. You know, also when you go to the Met, they have the subtitles in different languages. He also does that. There's no job beneath him. My proudest moment is that this year in Champion, Tashambe had a solo role, just for a few bars, but it was a solo role, and his first solo role on the stage at the Metropolitan Opera. So I'm saying this to you to say, everybody wants to hit a home run. Just get on base. And then steal second. Right? And the last thing that I'll tell you is, look, if there's ever any example of something that you can accomplish, I am it. I am no different than you. I'm no different than you. I don't have extraordinary talent. I don't have more talent than you. I know that for a fact, right? What I have is a work ethic and a willingness to learn. So this day doesn't mark the day where your education ends. Not at all. This is the day where your education truly begins. So, from this day forward, we're all going to be in the same boat. We're all colleagues. We're all music nerds. So from me to you, I'm so proud of you guys. Very proud of you. And I'm excited to see what you're going to do, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys in the future. Congratulations, class of 2024.